Remember, that's the message delivered by war correspondent Mike Boettcher in his gritty documentary, The Hornet's Nest. It's about a deadly 9-day combat between U.S. troops and the Taliban on one of Afghanistan's most hostile terrains.
One of the messages of the film is that the long conflict in Afghanistan is a forgotten war, but the footage in this movie, shot by Boettcher and his son, is as real as it gets. I discussed this with VOA film reporter Penelope Poulou.
Your measure's not found in how much time you have on this earth. It's what you do with the time that you have. These people have suffered for too long.
Penelope, tell us about The Hornet's Nest and why it was that you thought it would be important to feature.
Mike Boettcher is a war correspondent. His job is to go to every war front that he deems significant and document it. He's been doing that since the 70s. For him, the war in Afghanistan wasn't only an important war and had a goal, which was to really rid the Taliban. It was also a way for him to show the significance of the U.S. troop and the sacrifice that they're making.
The best way to really tell this story was not to parachute in and out. And I said, I'm just going to embed a year at a time. And so I did for over 2 years, so we could really dig down deep and get places other people could never get to.
We're going in to check. It's been eerily quiet. We haven't had a bullet fired at us in over 12 hours.
You know, what's interesting about this also is that you're not just seeing these soldiers who are on the ground during these battles, but you also realize that the journalists telling their stories are there also. What does this say about war correspondents? How did you respond watching these films?
You would see scenes where the bullets literally pass you by. You can hear them. Soldiers are ducking and that camera is standing still. And you say, who is behind that camera? You see them ambushed 9 days straight. And at some point, you know that Boettcher is there, of course, documenting every single bullet, every single death. And at some point, he turns the camera onto himself. And you wonder in the beginning, well, what is he doing that? I mean, is it self-promotion or something? Well, he told me.
Because I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to make it through, and I wanted at least a document to exist if this is where I was.
After all these experiences he's had in his life, that was it. That was the end of the road.
One of his goals for this film is not just to showcase the men who died and to remember them and to show this wartime battle as it happened, but it's also geared toward helping the living soldiers, these veterans that we have. What is his message?
Well, his message is that we need to take care of these soldiers better than we are.
These tremendously close bonds are formed of people fighting for each other's lives. And when they come back home and they leave the military, that whole support network of their buddies, their battle buddies, is gone. And that's where we fail them to make that transition from battle buddies to regular citizen living in peacetime USA.
If you top the emotional trauma with loss of limb, these people feel they have nothing to live for.
You know, this is a theme that's also touched on. The war in Afghanistan is also a theme Sebastian Younger touched on, and you had a chance to interview him. He's another American author and journalist.
One of the things said about his film in Korangal is that these soldiers describe exactly that, the feeling to stay where they are, despite the challenges, despite the war. They feel this is where they belong.
I'm on fire!
And you see the guys on edge, like, when's the next round?
I think a lot of us kind of miss that adrenaline.
You do terrible things, then you have to live with them afterwards.
It messes with your head in every way.
The best thing a journalist can do, and I think maybe the only thing a journalist can do, is try to present the entire truth of an experience. The soldiers enjoyed combat to some degree. They're also very traumatized by it. Politically, those are sensitive messages to communicate even in this country, right? But it's the truth.
What do you think will be the effect of these films?
Definitely these two documentaries make you realize that regardless of how you feel about a war effort, these people are there to do a job they were called to do, and that they deserve more.
All right, our thanks as always to VOA's Penelope Poulou. The U.S. now plans to withdraw almost all of its forces from Afghanistan by 2016. Over 2,000 U.S. service members are reported to have died in the war, which has gone on now for more than 12 years, along with more than 13,000 Afghan police and soldiers and thousands of Afghan civilians.
It's important to remember those who have suffered, civilians who have suffered in this war, along with those who are fighting it.
Yeah, absolutely.